Welcome in. Belly up, have a seat, and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the league podcast. I am your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. This is episode 142, Week 16's two-point conversation. And it is my great pleasure to welcome into the bar Mr. Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How are you doing today, Bernie?
Well, I am caffeinated, uninformed, and I'm here. So let's see how it goes.
It's going to go great. That's exactly all I'm doing. We're doing great. Okay. All right, guys. So in this show, what will we do today? We will start off with some player news. We'll also go through the studs and duds for Week 16. And we'll settle into a nice Week 16's two-point conversation where we usually talk about the Week 16 action up to this point, but who knows where this conversation might take us. But before we do any of that, guys, I want to make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingmen assemble! All right, now that everyone is here, let's get into some news and notes. Let's start off with some players who were on the field today for the first time this season. Mr. Hollywood Brown was activated. He was activated for this weekend's game and made his 2024 season debut for the Chiefs on Saturday. Oh man, this was tough to watch here. Tank Dell, after making a spectacular grab in the end zone, had a gruesome knee injury. They're calling this a dislocated kneecap. Oh man, and unfortunately, for the second straight year, his season's going to end early with a tough leg injury. Cedric Tillman, he gets his practices in, but they're not getting full, man. He's staying in this concussion protocol. I believe this is his fourth straight game not on the field. And Isaac Guerrero was inactive today for the 49ers. Can any running back step in and do the big numbers? Probably not. All right, what do you have on these players today? Hollywood Brown, season debut. Tank Dell, awful injury. Tillman can't get right, and Guerrero also missed today.
Well, I've got Mr. Hollywood Brown on my team, and I put him in my lineup. I wanted to see what kind of chemistry he could build up here with Patrick Mahomes, and I figured they would pepper him with a couple of his targets, and I think he had six or eight targets. When we get into the box scores, we can talk about that. Tank Dell, I don't know. I don't know what to say about this. This seems very not good. As far as second straight year with a leg injury. I know they're young guys and they're they've got good genetics and all this stuff, but man, that's just a tough thing. That's like a mental injury as well, losing it again. And I saw how broken up CJ Stroud was.
Yeah.
He said that was his best friend there, going down again. So that's tough sledding for them. That's going to hurt the whole team, I think, mentally as well. Cedric Tillman, I think this might be one of those where the Browns aren't going anywhere. And why rush it back? He's a good receiver. So there's no reason for him to suffer any more head trauma on a losing team. So, and then Isaac Guerrero, I don't know. I don't know. That whole San Francisco situation just seemed to have has fallen apart very quickly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought it was a plug and play offense, but apparently it is not that much of a plug and play.
So it was interesting because that Guerrero news kind of broke a little later because it just wasn't. I don't know if he was limited or not going into this potential being missing for this week. But both managers who had the backup running backs, Patrick Taylor Jr. and Israel Abanikanda, they both got dropped right before the news came out, and then these guys were both on the free agent market there, or waiver wire market, going into this game. So there's a chance for some desperate managers to pick up these guys and put them in their lineup. It was better that they didn't, but nonetheless, it was interesting the timing here, as people who had these guys would have held on to them if they knew that they were going to have a potential starter in the San Francisco backfield.
Exactly. But again, now with a few weeks of San Francisco just not showing any sort of life. I wouldn't even spend waiver bucks on him at this point anymore. I mean, I think it's done.
Yeah, I agree. All right, now on to some other news here. David Montgomery last week, well, he was inactive for this game with an
Mhm.
MCL injury, but it was first reported that it was a torn MCL, and that still might be the case. But the star running back has not been placed on the IR. He is not slated for surgery, at least as of yet, and the surgery would end his season. So he's hoping to rehab it. I don't know, maybe wear a brace when he's a little better. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure if the diagnosis changed or not, if that was just a preliminary diagnosis and not really what's happening here. But he's trying to fight. And I get it, man. They don't go to the playoffs very often. I mean, the Lions have been good the last 2 years, but this is a magical year for them. And they have great players dropping like flies. So I guess I'd hold out for 2 or 3 weeks and see if you can maybe get it. But I think surgery is going to be inevitable. And I don't think he's going to play again this season. Let's just stop here real quick because there's a lot here. It's kind of gone back and forth. But David Montgomery was not put on the IR. And the big thing here is even if he is or is not going to get surgery, every week you wait, not put him in the IR is a week. If you do, he's getting back later on the other end.
Right, but I think you're spot on as far as he's definitely going to have the surgery, and the surgery would be season-ending surgery. I get at this point in the season, so I don't think they're in any rush to put him on the IR. I don't know the details of IR spots as far as like bonuses or pay or anything like that with that kind of structure. The other thing is. And I don't know how up to date my news is. But last thing I heard, he was going for a second opinion. So I don't know if he got that second opinion, or maybe that's what he's holding the IR spot for, not to until that second opinion happens.
I heard it was a third opinion.
A third, okay. We're on a third opinion. Okay. So he hasn't found the opinion that he
That's
wants.
right.
Yeah. Right. Okay. No, that's fine. And we'll see where it is. But clearly, he's not going to suit up and get back on the field with that thing. And I don't think Dan Campbell would let him back on the field with that thing, if it's an MCL injury, because you don't want to you don't want to tear or rip something that is going to be in even longer rehab than it might be now.
Right. All right. Jalen Waddle was also inactive today for the Dolphins against those 49ers. Alvin Kamara has already been ruled out for tonight's game against, who are they playing? Green Bay.
Green Bay.
Derek Carr has also been ruled out for the Saints against the Green Bay Packers. So Spencer Rattler, not Hayner, has been named the starter for Monday night, later on Monday night here against the Packers. What do you have on these three players? Waddle missed. Kamara and Derek Carr both are going to be ruled out. Kamara he's going for that 1,000 yards. He didn't quite get it last week. He got most of his yards in the receiving game, not that rushing game. So he still has a milestone to hit, but he's not going to get it this week.
Yeah. So as far as the Saints go, so we're going to see Kendra Miller and Spencer Rattler. So good luck against Green Bay. I guess don't lose by too many points if that's what's going to happen there. I don't know if you're going to be playing any of the New Orleans assets, because Green Bay's defense is not a walkover either.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes. Jalen Waddle, though, just for the Dolphin fan base out there, water is wet. That's all I can say about that. Kenneth Miller. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
Kendra Miller.
Kendra Miller. No,
Yep.
I was getting onto Kenneth Walker here. Yeah, you're good. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I have Kendra Miller on my team. I picked him up before there was a chance he was going to be playing here, and he looked really good his last couple of games here. Last game, whenever his first game was.
Yeah,
I think he's going to have a pretty. Asset. What's that?
Yeah, I think he's going to end up being a good asset going forward for them.
Yeah. If it wasn't the fact that it was a cold game in Green Bay and Breece Hall was healthy, I would have considered playing him with all the news that shook out today, who's in and who's out for the NFL teams.
Yeah, and Taysom's still on IR, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it'll be all Kendra Miller in the backfield there for sure.
Okay. All right. We have Kenneth Walker was active for this Sunday's match against the Vikings. However, he was not able to finish the game. He suffered an ankle injury. I did not see the severity of it. I didn't know exactly how late, so I don't know if he didn't return because of how late it was in the game, or if they couldn't get him right because of the severity of the injury. Honestly, I don't know too much about it other than that's what happened. James Conner was on fire in that first half. He was running through people, stiff-arming people. It was awesome. And then he got a little tweak. Actually, he had a knee injury, and you didn't really see anything happen. They showed the replay, and he just kind of, his whole body twisted, not his knee, just like he just kind of rolled over and went to the ground. Didn't come up like those non-contact injuries. Didn't get hit. He's been a workhorse all year, so I could see him just wearing down a little bit. But before that point, he was not looking like he was worn down, and he did not finish the game. He was sitting on the sideline in some high pressure situations there, high leverage moments. So it wasn't like we'll save him for when we really need him. And who's the backup there? Was it DJ Dallas? Was there somebody else?
Arizona backup. I don't know. We can get into that during the
We'll
game.
get into that
Though.
later
Yeah.
because Benson was either not active or he got hurt, and DeMarcado's on the IR. So they played some guys that, it was Michael Carter. Michael Carter. That's who got the carries. DJ Dallas also got some work. So I'm saying, like, at this time of year, the players that you thought have been the backups all year long, they are also hurt. So you're learning some new names. Are the fourth string guys are now the second string guys. So it was Michael Carter, who was drafted by the Jets a couple years ago. So just keep that in mind. If Connor goes down, he's been a stud. Carter did not look nearly as good, obviously, but that's still someone who's going to play. Jalen Hurts left the game early today. I don't know if it was in the beginning of the second quarter or late in the first, but it was before halftime for sure. Left the game with a concussion. He got hit twice today. He had a tackle where he hit his head pretty hard on the ground, and then not too long later, he got there's a defender dove into him and pretty much a head-to-head on the side of his head. So those combination of hits gave him the concussion. He was ruled out pretty quickly with that. He had to go to the locker room as opposed to the tent to get the evaluation, and he did not come back onto the field. Kirk Cousins, this escalated quickly here. He went from not starting this week to now there's reports he may be released by the Falcons early in the offseason to avoid a roster bonus, and that date is March 17th. I'm not sure exactly when free agency opens, but that is before the draft. We know that much. So there's a chance Kirk Cousins, they might cut bait. Do they have their next start in Penix? This thing's been a mess from the beginning, but the insurance policy of the young quarterback might have looked like the best move at the end.
Yeah. As far as the Falcons go, those big decisions to pay these players coming off of injuries like this, I understand that Curry has a body of work, and who's not to say that he's worth that money. The market says he's worth that money, and the people willing to pay him say he's worth that money. But coming off of an injury like that, and then not seeing him play, paying him that money, I would see them putting these little clauses in the contract. And
I'm sure there's
like
tons.
that.
I'm sure there's tons of get out clauses. Yeah,
Exactly. So I think they had this plan from the beginning. Kirk seems like a really straight up guy though, and so does Michael Penix. I heard his interview, and most of the things he was saying was all like Kirk this, Kirk that. Like Kirk's really been helping him out. He's really been learning a lot. So who's to say Cousins hasn't made a home in Atlanta? This is towards the tail end of his career as far as living here in the city. And he says, okay, let's work something out here. And he just becomes just a little higher paid backup quarterback next season. They restructure some contract stuff. I don't know if Kirk wants to go try to play for another team and move his family again, because I think he does have some family already here in the Atlanta area. So,
okay.
Yeah. Hurts, that sucks. I mean, that really sucks. But I think you've got a good take on this, and I'll let you get into it further. But it's that's what you get when you put their quarterback out there and he's not handing the ball off. He's not throwing the ball short to his tight ends or anything like that. He's trying to get these yards. Eventually something's going to happen, good or bad. It's going to happen. The other two, Walker and Connor, their backup runners obviously are fine. They're not the greatest in Arizona, but they're not the best in Seattle. What I want to see is a little play action to these backups, and then I want to see them use their stellar tight ends, because both of these teams have excellent tight ends on a little short routes. Instead of trying to force these backups into things, because I saw I heard. I had to listen to some games today. I heard Charbonnet got stuffed on the goal line. And it was one of those things where it's like, clearly there's a reason he's not the number one back. So
Right.
You need to start utilizing these tight ends a little bit more. And for Arizona, get McBride some touchdowns, get him some passing touchdowns, please.
I'm surprised they didn't force feed him more today. I think they got shell shocked being down so early. We'll talk about in the 2-point conversation. I think Arizona's a little shell shocked getting down so early to Carolina, and I think they wanted to let's get up and then we'll just pepper the guys. We want to get their stats. I'm like, oh crap, we can't go for stats. We got to try and win this game, and they were playing a little desperate there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys, let's check in on this week's studs and duds.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Wingman Fantasy Football, studs and duds.
All right, Bernie, why don't you start us off with some of our studs for Week 16?
All right. It looks like we got 2 rookies and 2 wily veterans up here, and some new names, some fresh names. Bryce Young at the top of this list, 27.12 points, 158 passing yards, 68 rushing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdowns. My man, looking good. Jared Goff, 25.44, 336 passing yards, and 3 passing touchdowns. Mr. MVP Jared Goff, great job. Geno Smith, 25.36, keeping the team alive there. 314 passing yards, 8 rushing yards, and 3 passing touchdowns. And look at this on the rook, Caleb Williams, 24.76 fantasy points, 334 passing yards, 34 rushing yards, and 2 passing touchdowns. You got to do a lot to keep up with them Detroit Lions.
All right, we got some boomer bust style quarterbacks here who had their boom weeks this week. Our start of the week, Kyler Murray. I don't know how he did it. He didn't look too good today, honestly, but he got there by the end. 24.38 points. He had a stacked box score this time. A little bit of everything. 302 passing yards, 63 rushing yards, 1 passing TD, and 1 rushing TD. Justin Herbert on Thursday night was dealing on some, especially in that second half. Had 24.16 points on 284 passing yards, 28 rushing yards, 2 pass TDs, and 1 2-point conversion. Brian Thomas Jr. is owning these last few weeks here. They are going to showcase this guy for the rest of the year. 23.7 points with 132 receiving yards on 9 receptions, and he got in the end zone 1 time. Oh, Bernie's one of Bernie's favorite players here. Jamison Williams was running all over the field. Could have had a bigger day. Got tackled at the 1 or 2 yard line, but he had 23.5 points on 150 total yards with 5 catches and 1 long touchdown.
And his teammate wasn't too far behind. Mr. Jahmyr Gibbs, 23.4 points, 154 total yards, 4 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And the great Bijan.
I pushed it. Oh, give me a second.
Pardon me. Would you have any Grey Poupon?
Mr. Bijan Robinson, 23.3 points, 103 total yards, 2 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. And Debo Samuel, 21.6 points.
Debo!
121 total yards, 7 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And Jerome Ford, 21.6 points, 131 total yards, 5 receptions, and 1 touchdown. Great waiver wire pickup.
I don't know how Ford got those points. Like when I looked down at one point, he had like 15 points and like they were losing like 20-6 with like no, like he had like all the yards, I guess. They had like 120 yards total offense, and I guess he had like 95 of them at that point.
Yeah.
And then he finally got in the end zone. Man, I was ready for the Bijan thing, but if I had the wrong screen out in front, my hotkeys don't work. I was hovering, waiting, and I still messed up. That's my fault. Man, we only got 1 more week to get this right. He's better have a good game next week. All right. All right, moving along. We have more studs here, guys. We have, where we leave off here? Oh my gosh. Alameda Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus had 21.5 points. He plays for Washington, people. I didn't know that. He used to play for Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. If it's the same Zacchaeus, how many Zacchaeuses are there? He had 70 receiving yards, 5 receptions, and 2 touchdowns, including a clutch score in the 4th quarter. Tajay Spears, one of our mailbags, asked if this guy should be started. I said yes, and then was worried when Pollard was active, but he had 20.1 points for the 2nd straight week. He scored 2 touchdowns. He did that with 66 total yards and 3 catches. Jackson Smith and Jigba, we mentioned him as a late season star, and he is putting up the numbers at 20 points even, 100 total yards, 8 receptions, and 1 TD. And Derrick Henry, the train, he got 19.9 points, and he didn't even need to score. 189 total yards, and he added 2 catches.
Wow. And the squeaky wheel has been greased and greased and greased again. A.J. Brown, 19.7 points, 97 total yards, almost that century mark, 8 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And then the Gus buses rolling. Gus Edwards, 19.6 points, 71 total yards, 1 reception, and 2 TDs. And Jamar Chase, 19.4 points, 104 total yards, 6 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And release the Kraken, Kyron Williams, 19.4 points, 129 total yards, 1 reception, and 1 touchdown.
Release the Kraken.
All right, we have some kickers getting on this score here. Jake Elliott had 19 points for the Eagles today. He had 4 field goals, adding 3 extra points, and one of those kicks was longer than 50 yards. Tank Dell, he had a great day, and even his best play was the one he got hurt on. He had 18.8 points on 98 receiving yards, 6 catches, and a touchdown. Oh, man, and you got to shake your Kayshon Boutte at 18 points. The receiver for New England had 95 receiving yards on 5 catches, and he got in the end zone. In the Atlanta defense, we called it 2 weeks ago. Get ready for this week. And they were they weren't put on the bench. They were dropped. We had this discussion. Does Crazy Fish have a problem? He keeps adding and dropping defenses for no reason. 18 points out there on the waiver wire. 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and those were 2 pick sixes. So great job, Atlanta defense. All right, next up. Ooh, we're going out to Vegas, I think, here. Amir Abdullah, 17 points, 85 total yards, 5 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And Xavier Worthy, rookie superstar, 17 points, 75 total yards, 7 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And Chad Ryland Holmes, 15 total points, 3 field goals, 3 point afters, and 1 50-plus yard field goal.
I have to say, just by memory here, I could be double checked here, but ever since Arizona brought Ryland on, he's been on this list quite a bit, or at least our top performer list on our rewind.
Yeah, they've been struggling to get in that end zone, so I could see that they move the ball fairly well.
Yeah. All right, now we have just as many duds as studs, and it's time to let you know who underperformed today in some pressure situations. Our playoffs, we don't want to see any of these guys underperform, but they did. Why don't you start us off with some of our duds for Week 16?
Ooh, it hurts my heart to say it. Even on a win, he's still a dud. Tua, 12.8 points. Drew Lock, he locked in that dud list, 12.6 points. Aiden O'Connell, good to see him back on the field, but 11.48 points for Aiden. And DTR coming in on a bad team, 11.8 points.
We have Matthew Stafford in a cold, windy game up in East Rutherford at only 8.4 points. Michael Penix Jr., he got his start today. They got the win on the backs of the defensive scores, so he just had to manage the game, and that's what he did. 8.38 points for the rookie. DeAndre Swift could only get 6.8, and Marvin Harrison Jr., we were talking about our things. He's a roller coaster guy. Marvin Harrison Jr. at only 5.9 points.
Yep. And then the man that probably he replaced, Mr. Nuke Hopkins, 5.7 points. Travis Kelce, man, this guy, I don't know. He might be on a special roller coaster list for me. 5.5 points. Jacoby Myers, 5.1 points. And Brian Robinson Jr., 5.1 points as well.
All right, Travis Etienne, no muy bien, at only 4.7 points. And Jalen Hurts, we talked about it earlier, left the game early with an injury. He only finished his day with 4.54 points. Najee Harris on Saturday could only get 4.2. And Cooper Kupp with a big improvement from last week, but still a dud at only 3.9 points.
Next up, Quentin, don't throw it to Stone Hands Johnson, 3.3 points. Brenton Strange, that was a waiver wire acquisition that I guess we didn't really need. 3.2 points. Khalil Shakir, 3.2 points. That's a little disappointing. Isaiah Pacheco, also a little disappointing. 3.1 points.
Patrick Taylor Jr. for the 49ers. He got the call for the start. I don't know if he ended up with the most carries because they pretty much spread it out, but with not any other running backs, Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel were the ones who split the carries pretty evenly. They all had about 9 carries, give or take. But he was no Isaac Guerrero, no Jordan Mason, and definitely no Christian McCaffrey. Patrick Taylor Jr. only had 3 points today. And without Jameis Winston, we knew how this was going to go for the Browns. Jerry, the Judge Judy, has been sentenced to DTR time as he only got 3 points this week. Tyler Lockett at only 2.9, and Michael Pittman Jr. was not part of the day for the Colts at only 2.9 points.
Yeah, and it looks like this Charbonnet is expired. 2.4 points for Zach Charbonnet. Amari Cooper, 1.5 points, and Kyle Stinky Pitts, 1.2 points.
He is so bad. He is so bad. Okay, now it's time to get into some of our high scoring guys. The highest of the highs are Mecca studs.
Mega studs.
All right, guys, we had some big time scores today, and we had some running backs rebound. Last week we had no running backs on this list, or hardly any. Jonathan Taylor, what do you think about this, Bernie? 39.8 points. He had 218 rushing yards and 3 TDs, and he was taking a lot of time off in the second half just to come in to break long runs. Jaden Daniels, the rookie, was held at bay for most of it, but that fourth quarter and second half, he was amazing at 38.42 points. He got there with 258 passing yards, 81 rushing yards, and five passing TDs. This is a Lamar-esque Jackson-type game here. That was a big-time game for Jaden Daniels and a big win for the Commanders. Justin Jefferson's been pretty good all year, but he's finally got a superstar game at 31.4 points. 144 receiving yards on 10 catches, and he got in the end zone twice. And my favorite bubblegum, Chuba Hubbard, had 30.5 points at 165 total yards with 4 catches and 2 TDs. Devon the Man Achane had a long run late that turned his game around, 28 points with 190, that's not right, maybe 190 total yards on 6 catches and 1 touchdown. Saquon Barkley, 27 points, and most of these came in the first quarter. He had 150 rushing yards and 2 TDs. James Cook, after his dud 2 weeks ago, has been a superstar back-to-back weeks, a mecca stud at 26.1 points on 126 total yards, 3 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. And James Sweet Feet Connor got all of this in the first half, 24.6 points, 168 total yards with 4 catches, and he got in the end zone once. And oh my gosh, Keenan Allen got 24.6 points. He had a long touchdown, looked slow as heck running it, but he made it at 141 receiving yards, 9 catches in that long touchdown. And Jason Sanders, a mecca stud kicker at 21 points. He might be the best player for the Dolphins, to be honest with you. 5 field goals, 2 extra points, and one of those kicks was longer than 50 yards. What do you think about these mecca studs? A lot of running backs here. We got Connor, Cook, Barkley, Achane, Hubbard, and Taylor. Oh my gosh, there's 6 guys on here, 5 or 6.
Oh yeah, this is a great list. I got 3 things. Okay, Jonathan Taylor, he's just making up for all those bad games he gave me during the season. Too little, too late, buddy. I'm not in the playoffs, so I'm only going to get 7th place with all your good stuff going here. Second thing, it was 190 total yards, 120 on the ground and 70 in the air for Achane. And then the last thing, just curious here, Mike. What is the reason that James Cook has 26 points and James Conner and Keenan Allen and Jason Sanders are below that and they're on the mecca stud list, and then Bryce Young is at the top of the stud list with 27 points? How come he didn't make the mecca stud list?
That's a fair question. We mentioned it earlier in the year, but I'm sure that we have new people here, or they might have even forgotten the ones who have been here for a while. So I have different thresholds for different position types here. QBs, we know, score more points. So for a QB to be a stud, they have to score 24 points to 30. If they get 30 or more, they are a mecca stud. That's why. So Bryce Young got 27 points, so he's in the stud range in terms of quarterbacks. If he had more than 30 points, he'd be a mecca stud. For the running back, wide receiver, tight end, our flex position, if you will, 17 points to 24 points gets you a stud. 24 points or more, you are a mecca stud. And kickers and defenses, of course, they have a little harder time scoring, so it only takes 15 points to become a stud, but anything over 20 and you are a mecca stud.
Go Jason Sanders, 21 points, mecca stud.
Mecca stud. All right, guys, it is now time to settle into this week's 2-point conversation.
Is Jack Del Rio going to go for 2 here,
He's
Rick?
going for 2.
The Raiders will go for 2 and the probable victory with 47 seconds left.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Wingman Fantasy Football's 2-point conversation.
And it's good! Oh my goodness!
All right, guys. So I didn't really get a theme for this here, but I want to update on one game that we're probably not going to talk about, maybe a little bit right now. I'm just going to start us off here. The Sunday night game is being kneeled out right now. Tampa Bay is going to lose, which means Atlanta is now tied for the division lead. They have the tiebreakers. We don't have enough to talk about this in the conversation, but we just a little bit here. What do you think about this? This just drops Tampa Bay from like the 3rd seed down to the 5th seed or 6th seed, and it moves and it just swaps the exact opposite there for the Falcons here. This is a big weekend here. Penix comes in, gets a win, and Tampa Bay loses on the road.
Yeah, so I think this is you can't put too much thought into this win from Atlanta because Penix didn't have a great game. He didn't lose the game like Kirk Cousins was. He wasn't turning the ball over, but the defense did a lot, and they were playing the Giants.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, how much of a measuring stick is this really? It's a tough for Tampa to lose. I am an Atlanta fan, but I'm also a Baker fan, and I like to see Baker win. If it comes down to Atlanta and Tampa, obviously I would want Atlanta to win. But seeing Baker win, I think this loss is just a little speed bump in their road to the playoffs here, because he's going to fire them back up, and whoever they're playing next week, and they're gonna go full bore straight through them.
I don't have it memorized, but both those teams, Atlanta and Tampa Bay, have pretty easy schedules to finish out their season here. I know Carolina's on one of their schedules, if not both. So,
well, Carolina's not a walkover anymore, are they?
That's true. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
that's still one of the teams you'd rather face. But I hear you. Yeah, you could be snake bitten by those guys for sure.
Yeah. So who would have thought at the beginning of the season that the NFC South would have been as exciting as it is for these top 2 teams now?
Yeah. All right, let's get into our games this week. Why don't you start us off all the way back in the Wayback Machine? Let's start off with our Thursday game.
All right, Thursday's game here. I believe it was the Chargers defeating the Broncos 34-27, overcoming a 21-13 halftime deficit. Los Angeles is at 9-6, has a 97% playoff probability. They can clinch with an Indy and Miami loss. But that, we obviously know what happened there. Denver at 9-6 had a 4-game winning streak snapped, but they maintain an 85% playoff chance.
So this game was a tale of 2 halves. Well, both teams started off running the ball. Broncos went right up and down the field the first 2 drives, pretty much all on the ground. They were sprinkling in Estime, Williams, and Watson, a practice squad call up, and they just kept splitting. You can't get any production from anyone back in that backfield, except for one random game here or there. Even when they have injuries, they're going to find a 3rd guy to put in. But it was working at first, and then Justin Herbert got going a little bit, especially in that second half. And then he had a couple really great throws. He was scrambling, I think, to his left and threw it all the way back to the right to a receiver that I don't really know his name, maybe Davies, something like that. You can maybe double check something like that. I'm not sure his name, but
Darius Davis.
Okay, yeah. So that was a big touchdown there. And then Gus Edwards, when it was still close, Gus Edwards had a huge 43-yard run in that 4th quarter that pretty much closed the door in terms of getting a big first down and getting him to scoring range. And I'm not sure if they had a field goal or touchdown there, but that extra score there put him up by, the 2 scores. And Bo Nix didn't really, he finished with a decent game fantasy-wise because they were having to come back that whole 4th quarter, but he didn't do too much. But Herbert was looking vintage there with some big-time throws that marveled you a little bit. And Gus Edwards with a random good game, but he really didn't play that well. He got a 1-yard touchdown or a short touchdown earlier. He had 2 short touchdowns. He only had 1 long run. Pretty much he had like 12 carries for 12 yards, and then he had 1 carry for 45 yards.
Yeah, he had his long was a 43-yard, and it was 14 total. For 68 yards. It looks like just from the rushing aspect of it, LA was dominant in the rushing attack with 117 total rushing yards. But it came with an actual running back, Gus Edwards, and Bo Nix was the number 2 running back on the other side. So,
and even Herbert had some rushing yards in that game. I think he had 28. I might be.
Yeah, he had 28 in that game. He had 8 carries as well. So they're using their players the way that they need to win a game, which is the sign of a good coach.
And we're gonna probably mention this after a few of these games that The Dolphins have a very narrow path to make the playoffs, and this was one of those paths here. They need everyone to kind of tie, and they need to tie them as well, kind of thing. So, because I think Denver had the better record, so now they didn't take a bigger step ahead. One team took a little bit of a leap ahead in the Chargers, but they were closer.
Mm-hmm.
So the team that was further ahead dropped back. So now you're only 1 game back of that group now instead of 2 games back because you're fighting for 1 spot. So you kind of need a 5-way tie and maybe get a tiebreaker or catch them on the last game of the year.
Yep. And then you got the historic moments in this game here. The kick.
Oh yeah, I was listening on the radio. Yeah, so I was. I'm sure you guys are aware. I've been working very late, so I was listening to this game on the radio. In the earpiece there during my work hours there, and they were talking. So I didn't see it, but I heard it all. And the one guy, Ross Tucker, one of the color analysts who does the national games for Westwood One, he's pretty good. He's pretty funny, and he's like. They call it fair catch, a fair catch, a penalty. Wait, what do they? So that they can move it up here. They can kick the 64-yard field goal. Wait. They're going to call for a free kick. They can do a free kick. That's right. They fair caught it. They can do a free kick, and there's no one on the field. Just the placeholder just going to hold the ball. It's like taking a technical free throw, and everyone has to leave the gym.
Yeah.
but from half court,
Yeah, exactly. And it was a 57-yard fair catch kick to end the first half. So that was pretty awesome.
Well, he got that close because it was a roughing the kicking interference.
Yeah.
So that's what got him into that range. Because you can do that. You can do a fair catch and do a free kick from anywhere, but usually you don't catch the ball on that side of the field. And they didn't catch the ball on that side of the field. I wasn't sure. I knew that rule existed. I've never really seen it implemented so much to know exactly what. But I didn't know if the penalty. Because it's like a secondary act. It's not like I caught it and we want to kick from here. So I didn't know how that worked. If the penalty, it shouldn't, because that would be like then you would just hit people all the time if you can't take a free kick.
Exactly. But the great thing about it was not having that defense on the field.
Yeah.
Which, these kickers, once they can change the trajectory of that ball, they don't have to worry
That's
about
true.
somebody coming in to block it. They're gonna make these longer kicks a lot easier.
And
not a lot easier, but
yeah.
easy.
And Cam Dicker's been one of the better kickers all year long. So that was a nice play.
Exactly. All right. Anything else on this one for you?
Mm-mm.
All right. Let's go to the Saturday games. That's right. Saturday games we had here. The Chiefs defeated the Texans 27-19, putting Kansas City at 14-1, nearing the number 1. These notes are obviously from Saturday. Nearing the number 1 AFC seed. Can clinch with the Buffalo loss tie versus New England. Alternative clinching paths: Chiefs win versus Pittsburgh on Christmas Day. So what do you got on this one?
So we're not going to talk about the injury too much. We've already talked about it a couple times here. So we're just going to go through this game and the other parts of the game here. So we went into this one thing in that Mahomes earlier in the week. We're like, man, he didn't finish the last game. I think mostly because of when the ankle injury happened. Like they couldn't get him retaped and back on the field before the game just ended. But even so, they're like pretty severe ankle injury. We'll see if he can play or not. And then all of a sudden he was practicing full pretty much the first day back at practice, if not the second day. And the whole time I'm like, all right, he's not going to be able to move very well. They're going to try the short passing game. And then he had a 28-yard rushing touchdown pretty much to start the game. Yeah. It's like, okay, I guess he's fine.
His 15-yard, he had 33 total yards. His long was the 15 of it.
So he was running the ball early. And he was, no, I didn't watch a lot of this game because, again, I'm still in holiday mode here at work and stuff. But I was following a little bit and checking the box scores. And it seemed to me the type of players I thought he was going to do short passes. And there was Xavier Worthy caught a lot. You could tell me if there were more bombs or if they were, I don't know, maybe you can tell because it might say a long pass, but you don't know where he caught it from. Yeah. But it seemed like, and because P. Ryan had a bunch of catches. That's what it was. P. Ryan had a bunch of catches and Worthy had a bunch of catches. And I'm wondering if those were the short plays instead of going to Kelsey, who I thought maybe they wanted the shorter passes, but Kelsey takes longer to get open even in short areas. And these guys are quicker and can get open faster. Maybe that's why they got more catches. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so P. Ryan did have the longest, but it doesn't specify yards after or not. So he had a 36 long receiving catch, and Worthy had a 19, Hollywood Brown had a 20, Hopkins had a 15, Kareem Hunt had a 17. So,
but those are all guys who were close to the line. So I could see them being like screen pass and the guys maybe like a 6-yard pass and they turn up and get that follow a pile for 6 or 7 yards after the catch.
Exactly. But, had to have those long catches, and he spread the ball out quite a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was doing it. I mean, even Smith-Schuster was out there just getting a look. So,
and I was very surprised. Not that Hollywood Brown played, but it seemed like he had like 4 to 6 targets in the early second quarter.
Yeah, and I think he had 8 total targets here, 5 catches for 45 yards, which isn't a great stat line for fantasy, but it's a good stat line to show you that he was just getting mixed in with the rest of them. Hopkins only had 4 looks. He caught all 4 of them for 37 yards, but to give Patrick Mahomes another weapon, that just gives him and Andy Reid different formations that they can come up with, different looks that defenses haven't seen yet. So they're going to be pretty dangerous, I think, going in. And as far, just a quick comment on Patrick Mahomes, all the news that I've heard, people are just talking about he's just different. He's just built different. His ligaments are different. His joints are different. Like, he's just a different beast altogether, an anomaly, a DNA or a genetic specimen.
And then on the Texans side here, it stinks for fantasy managers who are riding Joe Mixon, who's been pretty good all year, slowing down a little bit as he's having some tougher matchups. But this was one of the toughest, and it went exactly how you thought it would go if the matchups held up. He was bottled up all day. They did not dominate the time of possession. Texans did. They were passing the ball pretty good. Dell was getting most of the targets and passing yards, and he did most of that in the first half. That injury came either late in the first half or early in the second half.
It was opening drive of the third quarter.
Okay, right. So, he had 100 yards at halftime, essentially, or maybe 70 yards because he caught that long catch to get the touchdown when he got hurt. Mm-hmm. But he was doing awesome. But then after that, Kansas City's defense was a story here, and they just kind of dominated the style of game. It wasn't a high-scoring game. What was the final score of this one? 21-7 or something?
27-19.
27-19.
Yeah. So go ahead.
No, that's go.
Yeah. I was just saying, Andy Reid had a comment after the game, and he described this game as their most comprehensive performance of the season. So he was happy with the defensive play, the offensive play. I don't think they had any turnovers that I could see here off the top of my list. So to play a complete game like that, that's pretty awesome for this part of the season, getting everybody healthy back. They're just hitting their stride at the right time.
And for the Chiefs, that 8-point win or whatever, that's one of they usually win by 3 points or 2 points. Exactly. So that for them, that's a little bit of a bigger. I'm gonna assume there. I'm not sure. You can check. I think Texans probably scored last to make it closer than it was. Am I mistaken there?
Fourth quarter. No, their fourth quarter was a field goal each in the fourth quarter. So
all right. I feel like they were always that 10 points ahead, but maybe it was always 8 points. But it seemed like they were in control of the game, even though it was not a blowout, but they were always up by a touchdown or so.
Exactly. So good win. Good win for them. All right. Anything else for you on this one?
No, sir.
All right. Next Saturday game. We had 2 Saturday games. Next one up. The Ravens defeated the Steelers. This is a big score here, 34-17, clinching their playoff berth. Both teams are now 10-5, tied atop the AFC North. First Ravens win versus the Steelers by more than 7 points in the last 10 meetings.
There's the Ravens defense I was looking for to get a touchdown from last week. They finally got their first touchdown of the season. Russell Wilson threw the ball, and he's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. He was laying down on the ground and looked very sad before the ball was even caught. And it was just a pick six. Lamar Jackson was dealing. Lamar Jackson was dealing again, but Derrick Henry was getting chunk runs. He didn't get in the end zone, but he was breaking off 30-yard runs, 60-yard runs. Every time I looked up, he was going down the sideline. He's doing it again. And I think he didn't score because his long runs were getting down to that between the 12 and 8-yard line, and then they would take him out maybe, or they would score a different way. Mark Andrews had only a couple catches, but he had a short touchdown. So they were getting Isaiah Likely had a short touchdown. So they were getting they were getting short touchdown passes. So that's Lamar Jackson had I don't think he had a ton of yards that you could double check, but he had all the touchdowns this time around. But Derrick Henry was the motor this time, getting him down the field with big chunk plays.
Yeah, so minus the one defensive touchdown, it was 3 receivers, Andrews, Likely, and Rashad Bateman, and none of them were more than 10 yards as far as the touchdown passes go.
Okay. I think Zay Flowers finally had a decent day, got 98 yards, 99 yards. He was close to 100. I don't think he hit it, but he was right around there.
Yeah, I was off by my start of the week by 1 week.
But Bateman's been the more, I don't know if he's not like more targets, but he's been more, he catches your attention more. You see him more on the field. You look at the stats, you're he got less targets than the other guys. But I don't, it's I feel like I never see Zay Flowers in the field. I always see Bateman.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what it is. Maybe just when I happen to look up, but it's just that's been the case lately.
Well, I think it's one of those red zone things. It's like whenever they're that close, you're going to see Bateman more than you're going to see Flowers.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Good win though for the Ravens there. That puts them in tie, but I guess Pittsburgh still is the tiebreaker because they're ahead of the division right now. So that's they split the series because Pittsburgh won like 4 weeks ago. So it's not the tiebreaker's not because of head to head. It must be conference record or divisional record.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good stuff. Let me see if I got any notable key moments in this one. No, nothing. No, nothing. All right, moving on. Sunday games. Here we go. Falcons defeated Giants 34-7. Atlanta improves to 8-7, keeping playoff hopes alive. And the Giants suffer franchise record 10th straight loss, fall to 2-13. And I'm just going to keep saying it. New York, you fired the wrong coach.
Yeah, this one, Atlanta's. See, this is what last week Tim Boyle played, and he did good with Neighbors. This time you put Locke back in, and it was just a turnover fest, a sack fest, a fumble fest. He was not having a good day, and the defense was playing awesome for the Falcons. Jesse Bates, once again, he might be one of the best defensive backs in the league. Quietly, he's been a superstar, man. I think they said he had 4 interceptions and 4 fumble recoveries. His combination of turnovers acquired is pretty awesome. He had the game-sealing interception last week. Oh, no, they won last week. The game-sealing interception at the buzzer against the Raiders. He had a pick 6 where he just I don't know what Locke was doing. He was staring at the same guy the whole time, dropping back. He pumped the ball 3 times to the same guy he was staring at, and Bates ran from all the way across from the left side, the defense's left side, to the defensive right side. He said, he's going to pump the ball that long. I'm just going to keep running that way because I don't think he's going to change his mind. And eventually he got in front because the guy just kept pumping before he threw it and then picked that ball off and right down the field. The other pick 6 was a batted pass, I think. It was a lineman. Judon caught it. I'm not sure if it was batted up and he caught it or if he just snatched it. I saw it, but I can't remember how it got to his hands. But he grabbed it, and with Locke just falling down the ground, there was no one in front of him to take him down. He just had to get out of that pile. And once he got that first 1 or 2 good steps, he was able to jog it back in. And then Penix was he reminded me a lot of, not completely, but he reminded me of Tua. Maybe it was the left-handedness.
Mm-hmm.
He was throwing he was hitting guys in stride, but they like how he mentioned how Baker Mayfield has that fastball sometimes. Yeah. I didn't see any fastballs, but I also didn't see any like lollipops. They were like that middle speed, very catchable ball. He was hitting a couple guys nice and stride over the middle. His only interception was literally Kyle Pitts said, "I don't want the ball. You take it."
Yep.
You saw that? That was ridiculous.
Yep.
He bobbled the ball, and then before he goes to the ground, he just smacked it up in the air and let it float to the defender who was in the end zone in front of him. So they were getting ready to score again. Penix might have had a touchdown pass on that drive because it was a good pass to Pitts, and Pitts just made sure to hand the ball to the defender. It was pretty embarrassing. Penix was a game manager. When your defense, Atlanta's defense is surprisingly solid. Even these games they were losing with Kirk Cousins with 2 interceptions every week and 4 interceptions. They only lost by 8 points or less. So if you can just not make the big mistake, give it to Bijan Robinson as much as you can, you're going to be in these games, especially against inferior opponents.
Yeah, and 94 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns for Robinson puts him at 10 TDs for the season. That compared that with a good defense, that's a recipe for a winning football team. If your quarterback cannot lose the game for you, and it looks like so far Penix, he's not going to win the game for them, but he's not going to lose the game for them. So, and
we think that like Bijan Robinson's I kind of think of that scat back. He's a big back. Yeah. He's way bigger than he moves smaller, but when he's standing in the backfield, either Penix is really small or Robinson is really big, but the combination, Robinson was towering over him in those shotgun type sets.
Yeah, and it took a season for Robinson to really get going. He was quietly rolling through, putting up great numbers total wise, as the season kept going, it kept snowballing, and he's definitely was I don't know if he was worth the draft position because he might not have won you the games you needed him to win, but a lot of that was Tyler Algier coming in taking some stuff, but it's one of those things. Algier only had 11 carries to Robinson's 22 this game. So
I will say the last 3 weeks, by the end, Algier has more carries than you would like, but it's Bijan's in the first quarter and a half. It's like Bijan's getting 12 carries to Algier's 1, and then by the time the game settles in, it's maybe getting a rest or not. But Robinson is dominating the first part of the game carries at least, and then they go from there.
Exactly, and because the running game and the defense got the touchdowns, you have Darnell Mooney quietly getting 5 receptions for 82 yards and Drake London 5 receptions for 59 yards. So the passing game is there. It's not that it wasn't there. It just the spotlight was on them. And then on the other side there, Tracy with a nice little touchdown to keep his fantasy stats going. But neighbors struggled, barely 68 yards. So
Yep. Nice job. Neighbors getting that good game last week.
exactly.
All right, let's move this one along here.
All right, moving on. We've got the Lions defeated the Bears 34-17. Detroit improves to franchise best 13-2. Lions set new franchise record with 7th road win, and Detroit maintains the NFC lead after Eagles loss.
So Jahmyr Gibbs was awesome. Goff was awesome. The weather was pretty good in that part of the country, but they were dominating on the outside game. Not exactly the same, but similar to the Thanksgiving Day game where the Detroit was up pretty big in the first half, and then the Bears never got as close as they did in the Thanksgiving Day game, but they got a lot of yards and stats in that second half trying to come back to make like Keenan Allen have a good day and Caleb Williams. But Detroit had fun today. Did you see the fake play action play they did?
Oh yeah, that
Teleporta?
was that was totally a planned little fake out. They were all laughing on the sideline after that. Oh my gosh.
So for just because it's worth mentioning here, if I can describe it well, I'm going to try to anyway.
Yeah.
So Goff gets the snap, and as he's going to fake handoff to Jahmyr Gibbs, he acts like he's going down, like he literally gets his whole shoulders out in front of his knees, like almost like he's lunging down to the ground, like he's falling. And then because he's so low, the defensive line probably can't look over the offensive line. They just see a stumbling person. And then you see Jahmyr Gibbs, who's the one going to get the handoff, stumbles after looking like maybe the ball rolled out of his hands. So they both are stumbling in opposite directions. And then Goff just turns around. It's almost like a flea flicker without the flea flicker. Then he just stands up, and Laporta's streaking to the left corner and just hits him easy peasy for a nice, I don't know how long it was, but it wasn't short, but it wasn't long. Like the nice 36-yard touchdown pass, something like that, maybe 40.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just, they were having fun. They were breaking out the playbook today. And that's one of those things like they could fall down because he really got his shoulders out in front of him. He was leaning way out in front of himself.
Yeah, for sure. But they're playing the Bears, so
right.
It's a statement onto the Bears. A couple of just quick notes for this game because they're doing so great. Gibbs joins Barry Sanders and Billy Sims as the only Lions running backs with 1,500 plus yards from scrimmage and 15 plus touchdowns. And then Detroit hasn't lost consecutive games since early 2022.
Wow. And they were saying this is the Lions' 13th victory of this season, which is the most in franchise history in terms of wins in a season. And it didn't take them the 18th week/17th game to get there, so you can't use that as a reason, as like some of these stats and records now. So they got their 13th win and even the old school, well, not the 14 game schedule back in the day, but in the 70s. But nonetheless, in 15 games, they got themselves 13 wins. Pretty impressive. And
they set the team scoring record with 493 points. So.
And they still got 2 games to go. And they have to play because Minnesota's on the docket here. They got to play them. So they're going to keep adding. I don't know if they're going to get the numbers, but there's no reason to slow down. They have to keep trying anyway.
All right, we'll move on. There's so much we could say about the Lions. They're great. They got an MVP quarterback. Let's move on here. Bengals defeated the Browns 24-6. Cincinnati improves to 7-8, wins 3rd straight, and the Browns fall to 3-12.
The Browns did what they wanted to do when they made this quarterback change because DTR does not throw any less interceptions. I think he had 2 himself today. He can't move the ball. Jerome Ford had a surprisingly very productive day. I think he had a long run, got tackled inside the 5, and they let Deontay Foreman, get the touchdown. But later in the game, Jerome Ford did punch one in. So he could have had even a bigger day. He was the only offense today for the Browns. Jerry Jeudy without Winston was what he was before Winston, nothing. Burrow was slippery. He had a lot of plays where he was just he never left the pocket, but as guys were falling down, he was just taking one step left. He was doing like a line dance or like the electric slide in there. It was pretty interesting that he was staying up, just kind of stepping around people and then flipping the ball over his shoulder or sidearm before he fell to the ground and was hitting guys because I don't know how these passes weren't getting knocked down, but he was having, I don't know if he was having fun, but at the end of the day, he's looking back like that was pretty fun.
Yeah. He only had 7 incomplete passes and 3 touchdowns, so you got to be having fun with that kind of stat line there.
Yeah, this was a blowout, and I don't know their percentage chance here, but Don't look now, man. The Bengals they might even control their own destiny. They're only a game back, if not tied, with that last playoff spot.
Yeah. And then one quick big note here, Myles Garrett, 100th career sack. He joins Lawrence Taylor with 12 plus sacks in 5 straight seasons.
Oh, wow. He's so good. All right, let's move this one along.
Yep. Next one up, we have the Colts defeated the Titans 38-30. That's a lot of points for these teams. Indianapolis improves to 7-8. Titans drop to 3-12, lose 4 straight. Tennessee. Oof.
So we have the Colts start. Actually, the Titans scored first, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it was Pollard's touchdown, but they did score first, and then it was like 3 straight scores pretty much for the Colts. Richardson had some nice long runs where he was like really working the blocks to get down, and his touchdown run was awesome. Did you see how he just like pretty much grabbed the shirt of his offensive lineman and just followed the wake of the block and the offensive lineman, he loved it. He didn't see, but he could feel it. And when he knew when he got in the end zone that his guy was in the end zone, because they were like tandem running. The offensive lineman, as he crossed the goal line, he just went, yeah. I mean, he didn't have to see the guy get in. He just knew it because he was tailing him the whole time. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was great to see there. This was a good game. You wouldn't have really tell because one team was just scoring, but the Titans, they scored the final 23 points. So it wasn't a cakewalk for the Colts, as one might think. It might have been garbage time, but to have 23 straight points and only lose by 8 points by one actual touchdown, that's a pretty big deal.
So Jonathan Taylor, we mentioned it last time, and it kind of held true. I was thinking about as the game went on until he had one shorter touchdown run later. I'm like, because Richardson scored like this, 12-yard touchdown run, and then Taylor had like the 60-yard touchdown run. I'm like, that's what we said. Taylor if he wants to score, he's got to get the long runs, and he can do it. But the short ones, he's not going to get. Eventually, he got the short one for the hat trick. He had 3 touchdowns. He was awesome today.
Yeah. He was.
So he had a great day, and then. So we were talking about Mason Rudolph in terms of the offense for the Titans here. And we mentioned, I said, like, he makes just as many interceptions as Levis, but he doesn't do the interceptions to then the fumble and then sit on the ball and like do the ridiculous thing after the fact. He'll throw the interception, he comes back, and then he'll have a regular drive after it. He had a couple bad picks today. Some were maybe bad reads or good defense, but then they come back and they just rally back normally. They're still not playing well. And he is the king of garbage time. Last week, they scored a touchdown at the buzzer. I don't know if you ever saw that when they scored a touchdown literally at the buzzer of the game. They were down 16 points and just threw a touchdown. Today, he had 2 touchdowns at the end. He helped both Calvin Ridley, who got most of his stats in the first half, got a nice 38-yard touchdown to start the day. That was the first touchdown, the Ridley 38-yard touchdown. Pollard scored. Spears scored twice. Akine got in there with a catch. Again, Rudolph's not good. He makes just as many mistakes, but it's not the multiplier effect mistakes. He can sprinkle in, and when it's garbage time, Will Levis can't use the garbage time. He just makes more garbage.
There you go.
And then Rudolph can use the garbage time to just get some empty stats, and it helps for fantasy. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, this is a fantasy show. All right, moving on here. So Rams defeated the Jets 19-9. Not much here. Los Angeles improves to 9-6, 4th straight win. Jets fall to 4-11.
So the Rams needed a win and some help along the way, and they got to clinch a playoff spot. They did their job winning on the road in one of the coldest games, the windiest games. They were saying we're going to ride Kyron Williams on this one, and they did. He had a good day today. Devontae Adams did get a touchdown early, and it was a great catch. Jumped very high in the back of the end zone and came down. That looked awesome. But after that, we said the cold weather, maybe the better team on defense. That Aaron Rodgers did not have that same type of output that he had in the last 2 games. Breece Hall got most of the work, but they weren't really moving the ball. I didn't watch too much of this game, so I don't know if it was just the weather. 3 and outs, good defense, but I think Braylon Allen only had 2 or 3 carries. Isaiah Davis had only 2 or 3 carries. It was Breece Hall had 12 carries, 50 yards. He was getting 5 yards a pop, but they didn't really move the ball after that first drive.
Yeah, it was tough. It was 23 degrees at kickoff. It was actually a close game all the way through. Jets started 6-0, then they tied 6-6, and then 9-9 in the fourth quarter, and then the Rams just kind of took over, scored the last 10 points. So it wasn't really not much going on here.
All right. Yeah, we had another dud from Cooper Kupp, a dud from Matthew Stafford. Puka Nacua barely got, he got 9 points, so he got like 60 yards or whatever, but pretty much Kyron Williams is the only one who did anything worth their salt here and Devontae Adams. And say Breece Hall did okay. He finished with 9 fantasy points, but there were other better on my team. That's who he is. I want to see if he get that monster game, but Jerome Ford did better. Gus Edwards did better. Kendra Miller's going to do better later tonight. So it was just kind of see if he could have him blow up game, but the Jets running game is not working right now.
Not working at all. All right. Moving on here. Here's an exciting game for us. Lots of fantasy points in this game. Commanders defeated the Eagles 36-33. Washington improves to 10-5. Eagles 12-3. Their 10-game winning streak ends. And the Eagles lose chance to clinch the NFC East.
So this one started off hot for the Eagles. They were on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Namely, Saquon Barkley had another 68-yard touchdown run. He had 2 touchdowns, so the Eagles scored 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. I think at the end of the first quarter was 21-7 or maybe 21-14 because Commanders were kind of keeping up. But 3 touchdowns in the first quarter for the Eagles. 2 of those were from Saquon Barkley on 2 long runs. And then right about there was when Jalen Hurts left the game. Kenny Pickett came in, threw a nice touchdown to A.J. Brown. So it looked like they were still rolling. They were up by that, 10 to 14 points. I kind of thought this game was over until I stopped watching, got outside to do some yard work. In that fourth quarter, Commanders came back came back fast. 2 different players scored 2 touchdowns. Jamison Crowder had 2 touchdowns. Alameda Zaccheaus had 2 touchdowns. I thought McLaurin had a better day because his highlight was awesome, but he only had the 1 touchdown pass. And Jaden Daniels can do whatever he wants. He just is so smooth, run around the field. And ever since he got healed up from that rib injury in the middle of the season, he's getting back to those big numbers he was putting up earlier before that injury.
Yeah, and this was against a Philly defense. Daniels is the first rookie quarterback with 5+ touchdowns, passes, and 65 rushing yards in NFL history. So that's a big stat line for a rookie against a good defense. This isn't a walkover defense.
First player or first rookie? I don't know if I heard you.
First
right.
rookie.
Okay.
First rookie QB.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And also McLaurin reaches 1,000 yards for 5th straight season.
I believe they said it was his 12th touchdown of the year. He's one of these guys who gets 3 touchdowns a year. He finally gets a decent quarterback, and now he's getting double-digit touchdowns. Is McLaurin going to be a second-round pick next year? We're going to see about that, obviously in our offseason here. But he is making he always had that name, but not the production, and now he is getting the production. He might be a potential high riser in terms of draft value for the next season.
Oh, yeah. So good stuff there. All right.
Sorry, before we leave, did the Commanders clinch a playoff spot with that win today? Because they have 10 wins now.
I didn't get that in my notes, so I don't know for sure.
They're if not, they have a very high percentage shot because the other guys are like the 8-7 teams, like the Seahawks and the Tampa Bay and/or Atlanta, depending on how that goes.
Yeah. All right. Panthers defeated the Cardinals. Another big game here, 36-30 in overtime. Carolina improves to 4-11, ends their 4-game losing streak. Arizona falls to 7-8, eliminated from playoff contention.
Yeah, they were going to be out with a loss and a Rams win. The Rams won, and of course they lost. And that same combination, we're not to that game yet. A lot of teams could have had their playoff fate decided this week, depending on what they did and what the teams they're chasing did. And a lot of teams got eliminated today, or at least a handful of those in the hunt teams got eliminated today with that Rams victory. I thought, and the stats were good for the players. I had all 3 Cardinals for the starts of the week. I thought the Cardinals were going to take this game and have fun with it, if you will, not in a disrespectful way, but just being able to do some things. And they kind of got punched in the mouth, man. You can tell me the first couple scores there, but I thought the Panthers scored pretty much on their first 2 or 2 out of their first 3 drives. I thought they were up 14-0 maybe or 14-3, and then then they gave the ball to James Conner and they started to dominate some of the offense there. But even so, that first 14-point lead kind of held for a long time. What do you have from that point? Yeah.
Yeah, the Panthers were up early 20-3.
Okay.
And then the Cardinals closed it to 20-17 at halftime. Then the Cardinals then Carolina led 30-20 in the fourth quarter, and then the Cardinals forced the overtime with a late field goal.
Yeah, they scored at the buzzer there. Like I said, Murray didn't look good, but he had a rushing touchdown. I think one of his he had a passing touchdown. Was that to Connor or was that to somebody else?
James Conner.
He had a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, he had a rushing touchdown.
I'm not sure who he threw it to, but it wasn't McBride. He did try to throw one to McBride, but again, he threw it out of the back of the end zone like he does when he looks his way. But I thought they were going to try.
Dallas got that receiving.
That's right. That's what it was.
1 yard, 1 catch, 1 yard, 1 touchdown.
That's what it was. It was a pass to DJ Dallas. Before that, there was a pass interference, so the ball got down to the 1 or 2 yard line, and they did a nice play. I forget exactly. They had 2 running backs in. They faked the handoff to the one guy, and then DJ Dallas, kind of in that fullback position, leaked out to the right, so that he had a nice touchdown. And that was a score at the end of the half that got it to that 2017, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
If not, it was a score before that. But anyway, and I didn't really even think it was going to go to overtime. I thought that I was surprised they came back. Like I said, I started to go outside, but. The story of this game is Chuba Hubbard. Once again, he rebounded from his last game that wasn't very good. Not only did he rebound from that in terms of stats, but if you recall the last time that Carolina was in overtime, he got that carry once they were in field goal range to win it. And on that first carry after the Thielen catch, he fumbled, and they lost that game to I think it was Tampa Bay. Then they drove down and scored. This time, Chuba Hubbard was the man in overtime, scored the winning touchdown. So a nice little redemption for him. He's been great overall this season, but he felt so bad on that fumble, and this time he was able not only to not lose it for this team, he was the main reason they won this game, especially in the second half.
Yeah, Chuba Hubbard, 25 carries, 152 yards. So I mean, that's a great stat line with those 2 touchdowns. So it's good. It's good to see Chuba Hubbard doing good. He's worth the money. But here's a name that we'll talk about later in the week. Raheem Blackshear. He had 3 carries for 13 yards. So
yeah, with all the injuries to the Miles Sanders on IR for the year, Jonathan Brooks, who was their backup. It was Blackshear, who's their punt returner, kick returner, but he was the one who got the work there. He's not getting a lot of work. This just shows you Chuba Hubbard is the man. Yeah. But if you're looking for a handcuff for that type of player at this time of year, that's just the name that just to put it out there, just so you know who's next in line.
Exactly. All right. Vikings defeated the Seahawks 27-24. Minnesota improves to 13-2, eighth straight win. Seattle drops to 8-7, second straight loss, and the Vikings now 8-1 in 1-score games. Go Vikings.
This game was going back and forth. It was pretty close the whole time as I was looking at it, and then all of a sudden Justin Jefferson went bananas in that fourth quarter. He was having a good game, and then he ended up with an awesome game, a mecha stud game, caught an awesome touchdown late. I think his might have been the go-ahead touchdown in the last 3 minutes to go, give or take. I thought they scored the go-ahead pretty late in the game.
Yeah, 3:51 left.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Charbonnet didn't have a good day. Walker didn't have it. He left early, so I don't know if he would have had a good game with more time. So I don't know where the stats came in for the Seattle. We saw Geno Smith on the list. Who was he throwing? Oh, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I guess those are the guys he was hitting today.
Yep. I got it here. Hold on a second. Sorry, it's loading. It was a Jackson Smith and Jigba game. As far as the rushing goes, though, the rushing was non-existent in this game. So you've got DK Metcalf. He had 57 yards. Jackson Smith and Jigba had 95 yards. Those were your 2. Oh, I'm sorry. Ken Walker had some receiving yards. So 12 targets for JSN. 8 targets for Ken Walker, and then 7 targets for Metcalf. So those were your top targets.
I mean, that's what you expect. That's what Minnesota's been doing all year. They've been shutting down the run on teams, make you one-dimensional. That's why they get these close games. By the end of the game, as the game progresses, you become more what's the word I want? Just obvious to understand what they're going to do, and over time they kind of wear you down, and they can score. They also let you score in the passing game, but eventually, if you're dropping back every time, they're going to get that sack. They're going to get that knockdown pass. They're going to get that interception, just the right time to get that one score stop, and then they're going to come down and score one more time.
Yeah, and Seattle was sprinkling it about here. I mean, there's some names on here that just 1 and 2 targets, but AJ Barner had a long for 13 on 2 targets. Charbonnet had a long for 14 receiving. Kenny McIntosh had a 15-yard pass. Farrell Brown had a 17-yard. So there were some names out there when you shut down that run game, like you said. These receivers are just going to start coming out of the woodwork. And again, that's a sign of good coaching. Even though in a loss, they figured out a way to get the ball down the field.
All right. We have at least one more game, or is that the last one?
No, we got Bills. We got a couple more here, but
All right, let's get through them. We'll
Yeah.
get through them.
we'll get through them. Bills Patriots. Bills defeated the Patriots 24-21. Buffalo improves to 12-3, overcame a 14-0 deficit, and the Patriots fall to 3-12, lose fifth. I thought the Patriots had this game.
Bills were down. I think it was 14 zip. But every time I looked up,
Yeah.
I was like, or I know it was 14-7 at one point, and I just assumed it was Bills. I'm like, oh no, that says the other side of the box. That's the other team's got those points, and it stayed there for a long time. Finally got to that 14-14 sometime towards the end of the third quarter. This was close. I don't know if it was, that game was also very, very cold. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but James Cook was awesome in terms of stats and scoring. Josh Allen had a down game in terms of stats. I don't know if he was just controlling the game and managing it and didn't play poorly or not, but the low score let the New England Patriots stay in this one, but eventually they did what Patriots do. And of course, Allen's not going to let them lose this game here, but the passing game was almost non-existent. Shakir barely had any catches. He might have had one or two. He was 0 for most of the game. Cooper I saw with only 1.5 points. I'm assuming he only had one catch. It was all the running game for Cook and just taking their time because they knew they weren't in a hurry to score because the other team wasn't going to pull too far ahead.
Exactly. I think Allen had an injury to his throwing arm.
Okay.
He played through a bruised elbow.
Okay.
He was seen shaking his arm out. We didn't know at the time if it was his hand or what was going on, but it looks like it was a bruised elbow. So he was playing a little beat up. So, okay, moving on here. Raiders defeated the Jaguars 19-14. Las Vegas ends a 10-game losing streak, improves to 3-12. Jacksonville drops to 3-12, loses 7th of last 8 games.
So for this one here, we had the Jaguars weren't doing too much, but they kept letting Mac Jones score. I was looking because I thought he would be better than Aaron Rodgers going to this game, and for a long time it wasn't the case because Rodgers had that first drive touchdown, and Mac Jones, they didn't do anything. I forget how they scored their first, if it was 2 field goals or maybe a touchdown that he wasn't involved in. Anyway, but by the end though, he had a bunch of passing yards to his not his new favorite target, their guy they're featuring here, Brian Thomas Jr.
Yep.
Once again, he's just filling out the stat sheet. You don't know when it's going to come, but this time was in the fourth quarter. But he's getting the touchdowns, a lot of yards, a lot of targets. Jaguars are kind of coming back here, but in the end, they ran out of time. And the Raiders, O'Connell didn't have a good game in terms of stats, but he is good enough to get it to the other playmakers here. Brock Bowers had like 10 or 11 catches, almost 100 yards or right around there. Amir Abdullah, like we said last time, he doesn't need a lot of carries, especially if they're playing against bad teams. He does good on those screen passes. He actually makes some moves and makes people miss. He turns those screen passes into 8-yard plays, and if he can get it, break one to 17 or 18, he's going to score. He did it again today, although he scored on the ground today. He had an 8-yard run, not a pass. Madison got most of the carries, but Amir Abdullah was more effective, and he's been that way for most of the second half of this season here. So yeah, O'Connell didn't do anything except keep his players afloat, and Jaguars are going to lose, but they're going to go out swinging with Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, he pretty much summed it up right there. Brian Thomas Jr. Breaks 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. So he's doing the thing. He's the bright spot, and then obviously Brock Bowers.
That is a big stat for a rookie receiver to break 1,000 yards.
Oh yeah.
In years past, it's been like 900 yards is the threshold. Like if a rookie has 900 yards, and if they can somehow duplicate pretty close to that, once they get it 2 years in, it's like that's a guy like a Mike Evans, for example. That's a guy who's going to do it all the time. That once they do it twice.
Yeah. But it's both of these rookies on both teams, both losing teams. Bowers is 10 yards shy of Ditka's rookie tight end record for 1,076 yards. And then Thomas breaks the Jaguars rookie record for 1,000.
I do want to add one.
Yeah.
I do want to add one thing just because the Raiders were tied with the Giants in terms of having the worst record to get the number 1 pick in the draft. They both need quarterbacks here, right? So with the Giants losing and the Raiders winning, the Giants are now in pole position to. There's still time to move here. There's a couple games left, but have pole position to get that first pick. And in the locker room, the Raiders were celebrating, and not only the players, of course, they want to win because they're they're the ones putting the work in. But the owner of the team, Mark Davis, came down and he was celebrating with the team. It wasn't like, you guys messed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like they'll take the losses, but no one, even the guys who will take them, don't want to lose. So and a draft coming up with these good quarterbacks in this next draft and good players, anyone in that top 4 pick, you're going to get a great player. You don't necessarily have the first pick.
You're right. But the Raiders, with this win, though, they moved to the 6th in the draft order as of now.
Oh, they moved that far up, that far back, I guess.
That far back. Yep. So, all right. Last game, Dolphins defeated the 49ers. Oh, that sounds good when it comes out. 29-17. Miami improves to 7-8. Playoff hopes still alive. And San Francisco falls to 6-9, eliminated from the playoffs. I don't think those two sentences would have ever been spoken at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. This game didn't have much going on to it either. I think the Dolphins got up a little bit, not by a lot, but they got up early, right? They scored. Were they up like 12? Well, how'd the scores break down a little bit? Who had the first lead here?
So the Dolphins led 13-10 at halftime.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
The 49ers cut lead to 19-17 in the fourth quarter, and then Kohu's late interception halted the 49ers comeback. And then Achan's touchdown run secured the victory.
Yeah, that Achan was doing what he does, not a lot of rushing yards, had like 8 catches, still had a decent day like that, 11, 12 points in terms of fantasy. Then he broke that long run. Not only did it help his fantasy day, but that was the ceiling play for the Dolphins game, that 2-score lead late in the game. That was a big time run because he doesn't. If you're not paying attention, he does not break 25 rushing yards. It's been like 5 or 6 straight games under 25 rushing yards. He still gets 90 total yards and a score, but in terms of rushing, it's not happening. That 70-yard run was huge for a couple different reasons, and I think this might be one of the first games that McDaniel's beaten one of his coach mates from other previous stops. He seems to always lose to people who know what he's doing, and he doesn't beat he doesn't beat the teams like, I know what you're going to do, I'm going to beat you. It's like, no, I know what you're going to do, we're going to beat you. And so it's to beat Shanahan it's got to be just a proud moment. And to keep their playoffs, although slim, they're going to need a lot of particular things to happen along the way, but they're still out there to be had. So they're still alive in terms of playoffs, and you want to just be alive as long as possible. Who knows what might happen? The Dolphins did not play well, but they got the win, and that's all you're looking for at this time of year.
Yeah, and I just want to say this so it's on film because we're filming. Jonnu Smith sets the Dolphins tight end record, 76 catches with 802 yards.
Really? They've had some good tight ends in their day.
Not as good as Jonnu Smith.
All right, fair enough.
No, good. Jonnu's playing great. Tua's security blanket there, and he is a tough SOB. So good job, Jonnu.
All right, not to add time here, but I want to mention one thing. We were talking pre-tape here, how I went back and listened to our preseason shows and positional previews and stuff, and that's one of the things that perked my ear up. You mentioned back then, the word around the street, McDaniel's trying to change his offense to get the tight end more involved. Jonnu Smith might be a interesting play this year. You did that.
Oh, I got something right.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I'm saying like that's a random thing to even bring up, and not only is he performing, but the offense is like completely like not centered, but that's a top 2-3 version of the offense is going to that tight end.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a new segment in the offseason called Receipts, and then we can just collect the receipts from what was said earlier in the season.
Only the ones that we want to keep. Okay.
Well, yeah. You throw away bad receipts. Nobody's keeping a bad receipt.
All right, very good. All right, so that's the last game that we're going through?
That was it.
All right, so I would say the quick theme here, a lot of teams, some teams kept their slim playoff hopes alive, but a lot of teams dropped the ball. Most of the NFC West with the Cardinals and the 49ers. Might be one other team that got knocked out today. And all they had to do was win to keep their hopes alive. It wasn't like if the other team wins, they're out. If the other team won and they lost, they didn't take care of business today against winnable games. The Dolphins a winnable game. Carolina should be a winnable game. Bryce Young looked back to being good again after that last week where he wasn't. He's looking back how he was a couple weeks ago. That's pretty impressive. And in terms of, I'm going to move to early waiver wire thoughts, but we're not going to go through this too much because I didn't really plan here.
No, you're good. That's all you go for.
So I'm going to just mention here real quick. So a lot of these guys have been picked up, like, for example, picked up Jerome Ford, picked up Kendra Miller. I was ahead of that one a little bit, paid money for Ford. Should have put him in the lineup. Tajay Spears I had drop on my Crazy Fish, picked him up. But I just want to mention Tajay Spears and the Titans are playing Jacksonville next week. As terms of a defense, we got the Indianapolis Colts are playing the Giants next week. I think they're on your team, Bernie, if I'm not mistaken. So nice job there.
They are.
I don't know I forgot who Atlanta's playing now, but in our league, Atlanta got dropped. Right now, people, like I picked up Baltimore for 1 week and then I dropped them. So you might have good defenses that are being added and dropped based on who they need for one particular week. And you might be surprised at who's available for the next week if you can't hold on to like two or three defenses as you're going because you need those roster spots for other positions.
That is true. Is next week the finals for us on the playoffs?
For us, yes, we do have our championship game. And for most leagues, I would hope, are going to the finals next week. These scores, we have one score final. I'm just going to say these Sundays are not really for our league here, but I want to give a shout out here. Today took our jobs. He has locked up a bid into the finals. The other game is still outstanding, but the projections are way whack. But I'm not going to speculate here. Who knows what can happen? So we do have one team who has punched their tickets. They took our jobs as a chance to earn his first championship in the Wingman Fantasy Football League. Oh, I also want to thank you guys real quick. We had a couple listeners put in their Wingman Jam picks. Thank you very much. I'm thinking next year when we do it, we'll have like every 5 weeks, the winner will get a t-shirt, a Wingman Jam t-shirt. So we can get a little more involvement there. So we're just trying this out. So thank you guys for putting your Wingman Jams. I think you guys did pretty well. We had Lions and Dolphins out there. We'll see how you guys stacked up against us. With that being said, guys, I think that's it for this show. Without these bye weeks and playoffs, these are longer shows this time. So I want to thank you also all very much for sticking along with us for this show and the whole season, guys. We're getting to the end of the year, and this is our first full season on YouTube, and I want to thank you guys for being part of the show with us. With that being said, you can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, YouTube Music, and Amazon Music. And if you want to watch our show, please head over to our YouTube channel at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube. When you go over there, guys, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when our next shows are going to be posted, and leave a comment and let us know how we're doing. Remember, you can help us steer the ship. We're on the early boarding of embarking here, whatever, some boat lingo. So with that being said, guys, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty,
And may your first round pick spend less time in the medical tent than I spend doom scrolling TikTok.
Oh yeah. Have a good night, guys.